you ever wondered while wandering through the Glasgow Green? All of the statues and bits and bobs are authoritarian. We have Wellington Monument looking down on us, and the conquest of nations by colonialism fountain plonked in front of the People's Palace. In a contemporary mode, we have inherited the 3D Commonwealth Games Monument, more reminders of our colonialist past. Recently, we have just celebrated the 200-year anniversary of some spirited radicals, one who was hung and beheaded at the main entrance to this East End park in the 1820s. Hung right there in the shadow of the High Court, where many a Glasgow Keeley met their dastardly fate at the hands of the Anointed Ones. Fast forward to Kelvin Grove Park. In contrast, as you wander down Kelvin Way, the bridges are adorned by sculptures of philosophers, engineers, mathematicians, poets. The fountain there is surrounded by wee animal figurines from around nature, because there was no need to strike an authoritarian pose in this idyllic riverside park, because it was a park frequented by those who gave the instructions to the hangman. When has anyone ever been hung by the state in Kelvin Grove? Not only did the East End stem the stench of poverty reaching the noses of the well-off in the West End, but also nor did the rancid stench from the heads and poles from the executioner's axe. Today, while we're not drawn and quartered by perversions of the statutory instrument, many in our communities are indentured to a whole lifetime of ill health, hunger and inequality through the same justice system. Well, we can go and die for our country at the age of 18. At the same age, we are nevertheless only worth £6.5 an hour. Add to that the insecurity of a 0-hour contract. What options have many young folk for survival? Join the military, a life of crime, or surrender to a life of exploitation, constant fatigue, hunger and work? Then of course there is rampant deregulation to contend with, which has removed the idea of a fair day's work for a fair day's pay, if ever it existed. Deregulation leaves no obligation for social housing or to house the poor. Deregulation destroyed many places like the Red Road Flats, but it wasn't buildings that were destroyed in these places, it was communities and part of our culture and history. The parks mentioned here are two of the most well-loved parks in the city, with an abundance of many others. Our parks form part of the multicultural and multi-generational spaces in our city for the expression of our community's cultural history. It could be reasonably said that they are the only examples left that have stood the test of time in community recreation, as well as an institution that reflects our radical past. These autonomous spaces will be needed now even more to play a major part as an example and inspiration in building back the social spirit, if we're to get back to maintaining some sanity and social cohesion in these strange times we are living in. We're often told, in referencing our history, we need to look forward, not backwards, to progress, take on new concepts of lifestyle, economics, work, conditions and change. We're told this ironically by institutions that have not changed one iota in the last 300 years, not only in their traditions, fancy dress, peerages, nepotism, but also in their contempt for ordinary people's problems getting in the way of their accumulation of wealth. Basically, the denial and ignorance of our history only sends us backwards to darker days unprepared. We need to learn from our history critically to go forward, and young people entering adulthood in the political arena need to have some historical understanding of where we have been in order to plan the way forward, as the powers that be do their best to attempt to drag us back to the same conditions of 300 years ago. We certainly do need change, and the change is mentioned, but it's the ruling institutions that need change, not ordinary people. And as our history will verify, only with the support of ordinary people can we action the change we seek.
Then somehow, wisdom over the ego, that foul miseducator, enabled me to see beyond myself, over the brow. Then I could see I am not the adjudicator. I was freed from the concept of I, to then know that our strength lies in our human nature. But first we must see each other.